I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, as our world gets more sophisticated, so too do the cons that some crooks try to pull off. We're going to show you one tonight so you can be more alert to what's out there and remember to follow your gut. Yep, cons and scams. That's our big story tonight. It seems like scammers are always up to something new, whether it's the jury duty scam or the romance scam. The bad guys are always looking for a new angle, some way to rip off your good money. And as investigative reporter Kala Boshi found, their latest trick involves deepfakes. That's AI technology that can create video that looks very real, but it's not. So how convincing is it? Take a look.
Hank Pander is remembered as one of the Pacific Northwest's most prominent artists. His renowned work hangs in historic buildings, museums, and even the state capitol, where he created portraits of two former Oregon governors. Pander passed away last year. So it didn't seem that odd when someone claiming to be Pander's son, Arnold, sent a direct message on Instagram to a local nonprofit, offering thanks for the love and support. Over the years, Pander had worked closely with the Vanport Mosaic and created paintings depicting the flood that destroyed Vanport.
There was some knowledge. It wasn't just a message out of nowhere.
Laura Forti, co-founder of the Vanport Mosaic, responded, and the conversation continued. But then, things took an unexpected turn when the person claiming to be Pander's son suggested he wanted to sell some of his father's paintings and donate the money to charity. Forti quickly realized it was a hoax. The messages, the story, it was just too far-fetched.
So you could have called him out right there.
I could have.
But you didn't.
Nope.
For the next few weeks, Forti continued to play along, knowing full well she was dealing with an imposter. How? Because she was in contact with Pander's real sons, Arnold and Jakob.
I think it's terrible that people would prey upon a dead man.
The imposter, posing as Pander's sons, created fake social media profiles on Instagram and WhatsApp, even lifting photos from their real accounts, then messaging their friends and contacts.
You know, not only are you kind of attempting to go after this person's property, but you're also preying on the goodwill and the love for this person by their friends and their community.
Pander's sons tried to shut down the scammer by contacting Instagram, but found it difficult to get a response. They also reached out to law enforcement and the FBI. Meanwhile, the messages continued. At one point, the imposter shared images of the paintings that were allegedly for sale. Little did they know, one of the works was hanging on the wall outside of Forti's office.
So that was lovely to see a painting that we actually have at Alberta House.
The whole situation seemed like a game of cat and mouse until Forti asked for a video or a video chat proving the imposter was real. And that's when things got creepy.
Hi, I'm Jacob Pander, son of Hank Pander. And I'm selling the Vanport series paintings to Vanport Mosaic to donate money to a cancer patient.
The scammer sent a pair of deepfake videos portraying Pander's son, Jakob.
What was your reaction when you saw that video?
Well, I mean, it was very disturbing seeing that video. I mean, it was kind of put a pit in my stomach.
The AI-generated videos had been created by manipulating instructional videos Jakob had posted on YouTube. Look closely. The deepfake is above,
cancer patient.
The original below.
Well, you see, this is what my father wanted to do before he died.
You know, and if you're looking at it small on a phone, or if you don't really know me very well, you're not going to even notice that it's somebody else's mouth or whatever. So yeah, it is very, very spooky stuff.
Deepfake technology is improving every day, explains Stephanie Shark, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Portland office.
I would imagine we're going to see deepfakes all over the place because it's easy. It's getting easier to generate. It's cost efficient in a lot of ways. The better the technology gets and the more readily available, you're going to see it all over.
This AI technology can make it difficult to determine what's real and what's not. So slow down, check it out, and actually talk with someone you trust before paying someone or giving them information.
At the end of the day, people need to learn how to trust their own instinct.
Instagram eventually shut down the scammer's bogus account, and the trail went dead.
We don't know where these people are. I mean, perhaps they're on the other side of the world, or perhaps they're, somewhere in Oregon.
It's not clear why they posed as Pander's sons or reached out to a small nonprofit. We may never know who's behind these messages. Although there was one clue. In one of the messages, they'd shared a phone number.
No surprise, nobody answered.
The criminals may have moved on from this particular scheme, but they likely haven't stopped. Technology is making it more difficult to figure out what's real and what's not.
Kyle's with me now, and okay, just so I understand the scam, they would contact nonprofits, offer to sell them paintings that they didn't really have to try and get money out of them?
Exactly, and oftentimes they wanted the money sent via Bitcoin or a Cash App, maybe a wire of some kind. That's a huge red flag for all scams, really. If somebody's trying to get you to send money via Bitcoin or by, some type of card, that's not a good deal.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Do you know if they got any money out of these folks?
Luckily, no. The director of that nonprofit is savvy. She knew right away this was a scam, but other people may fall for it. You never know.
Yeah, and how do you recognize? I know it's really hard to recognize these deep fakes.
It's super hard.
That was scary, that example.
Yeah, there are some high-tech tools out there, but most of us, though, just kind of be skeptical. Take a closer look. Just stop and look closely. Oftentimes, there's unnatural colors or movement. Look closely at the mouth in particular. If it doesn't sync up with the audio, that is something you could be looking for. But generally speaking, again, things are moving fast, and it's tough.
Yeah.
Think about where the video is coming from, too. That's a big red flag sometimes, too.
Okay, great tips. Thank you, Kyle, for bringing all this up. Appreciate it. So now, what's going through your mind after seeing that deep fake? Think you spotted one before? Let us know, will you? The email is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Turning our focus now to the next election in November. Among the races that we're already following, voters in the city of Portland could have the chance to place limits on the city's new police oversight board. But it's even started reviewing the cases. That had happened before they started reviewing the cases. But that's only if the initiative pushed by the local police union survives a lawsuit. Now, some background on this. This is an issue that goes back to 2020 following the murder of George Floyd. With more than 80% support, voters approved a measure to overhaul Portland's police oversight system. It established a new independent police accountability and oversight board. Pending approval from the Department of Justice, the new board is set to be up and running in 2025 of next year. Now, from the beginning, the Portland Police Association did not like this. They tried to sue to stop this from ever becoming reality. That effort failed. The police union's next move was proposing 2 ballot measures and leaving it to the voters. But the ACLU of Oregon filed suit against those, saying, no, those are unconstitutional. Well, earlier this month, an Oregon circuit judge ruled against one of those initiatives. Measure 1 would have, among other things, required the city to increase and maintain the number of patrol officers, as well as create and maintain a 24-hour drug detox center. The judge ruled it unconstitutional on the grounds that ballot measures are supposed to change policy, not make administrative decisions like hiring more officers. The ACLU also claims that second ballot measure would gut the independent oversight and disciplinary powers of the new oversight board, and we're waiting for a ruling to see if that initiative makes it to the ballot. Measure 2 would remove the new oversight board's ability to discipline police officers. That is a huge deal for both sides. And it would change membership rules so that current and former law enforcement workers, plus their family members, would be allowed to be on the board. They're prohibited right now. It would also place limits on who and what the board could actually investigate. We've discussed police disciplinary authority before. We've looked at other cities, including Seattle, Tacoma, San Francisco, and New York. They all do have oversight boards that cannot vote to discipline officers, though. Instead, they send their findings and a recommendation to the police chief, the officer's boss, who makes the final decision. And on the membership restrictions, as written, the board is required to seek a diverse membership with a focus on people who may have had frequent interactions with police, also people who have experienced systemic racism, addiction, or suffer from mental illness. The police union's measure number 2, they want all members of the public to be eligible to be on the board, just so long as they live or work in Portland. On the other side, the ACLU argues this would actually reduce the diversity of membership, on top of the opportunity for law enforcement to hold power on the board. But the PPA says the current system would create a board stacked against police officers. As a whole, the ACLU says Measure 2 is unconstitutional, not because of the amendment themselves, but because of the way it's written. They say it's misleading and downplays the changes. So much so that the average voter, they say, wouldn't know the true impact if Measure 2 were allowed on the ballot and passed. Let's remind you, this for an oversight board that's not even in place yet. And it's an independent oversight board that's 82% of Portland voters approved back in 2020. We'll be watching to see what the court does on that second initiative. In the meantime, what do you think about this one? Should police officers be on or allowed on the independent oversight board? Should disciplinary authority be kept within the police department? Or do we press on with what could be a new model for police accountability? Let us know your thoughts. You could email us. The address again, thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Coming up next on The Story, our Living with Wildfire series continues with a unique story about what experts look for after wildfires to determine how a landscape is recovering. From shrubs to non-native plants, there's a lot more to it than you might think. That's coming up next when The Story returns. Our Environment Northwest series, Living with Wildfires, continues tonight, bringing you in-depth reports from around the region. Tonight, we're going out to Idaho, around 80 miles from Boise. That's where the 2022 wildfire forced evacuations from a small mountain town. Meteorologist Sophia Bliss shows us what experts look for after a wildfire to see if and how that landscape is recovering.
In 2022, the Four Corners fire got incredibly close to cabins and homes in Cascade, Idaho. Thankfully, that fire was stopped at around 14,000 acres, but of course, it had an impact on the natural landscape. So we're here to examine how the landscape is recovering.
If you look across at the mountain, it's not burned black with just sticks all the way across.
Dana Harris is the district ranger.
As far as the severity on this fire,
for the New Meadows district of the Payette National Forest.
About 98% of it was moderate and low severity, and about 2% of it was high.
Harris says that's a good thing.
That tells us that this is a fire that's doing its natural thing on the landscape.
Prescribed burns were slated for this area before lightning ignited this fire in August of 2022.
There hadn't been one for a while. We have been excluding wildfire from the forest. We've been doing that for 100 years, just putting fires out as fast as we could. Fire is a natural process, and so this ecosystem is one that before European settlement there was fire. The scary part of wildfire is when it threatens infrastructure and human life.
Harris says because this fire was mostly low to moderate severity, it had some benefits for the forest.
It opened up spots for regeneration of different species of plants and trees, and it opened up the understory for wildlife as well.
We know now that this fire had benefits, but that's not something officials know right away. A specialized team is deployed to determine the severity of the fire and if there are still root systems to hold soil on the slopes.
We want to make sure that it'll be safe over the winter and when it rains.
University of Idaho professor Heather Heward was a field observer on the Four Corners fire. She specializes in fire ecology and management.
My job was to go around into the areas that were burning actively and observe what was burning so that I could communicate back to what's called the fire behavior analyst and say to them, hey, this fuel type is burning right now and this one's not.
At the site our crew visited, Professor Heward says she saw great signs of recovery. Here's what she noticed. Shrubs are resprouting, which means their roots weren't overheated. Non-native mullein and thistle are taking over the more disturbed sites, which probably means there was more heat there. The native yarrow and shrubs are coming in less disturbed spots. There are trees that still have green tops showing, which is a good indicator they will survive. They may also have more resources than they had before this fire since there is less competition from other trees. However, there are some trees that are dead and will likely be cut down. Professor Heward says it would probably take between 30 and 100 years for this area to return to what it was like before this fire. But for more intense fires in older forests, it can potentially take hundreds of years to get very old trees back.
That process is going to be helped by a lot of these patches of green that are going to drop their seed.
This area will continue to be monitored for years to come, and if trees don't grow back naturally, or if there's another damaging fire, the Forest Service may replant the trees manually. For Environment Northwest, I'm Sophia Bliss.
Interesting stuff. Coming up next on The Story, the I-5 corridor has seen its fair share of violence involving guns, from road rage to random gunfire. But are things worse now than before the pandemic? Are we less safe on our busiest interstates? What's the data show? We'll take a look when The Story returns. Traffic accidents and distracted drivers are some of the obvious dangers you face on the highway. But there's another threat that's growing: the number of drivers threatened or injured by guns. After a number of high-profile shootings in the past year, investigators at our sister station in Seattle dug into the data to find out, is the spike in violence a terrible coincidence, or is something going on that makes us unsafe on the interstate? Chris Ingalls has our story.
I'm going down I-5 south.
Like 250,000 other drivers on any given day.
And I was about in the SeaTac area.
Evan Dyer traveled Interstate 5 in King County in late December. In slowing traffic, he came bumper to bumper.
He came up on me really, really quickly.
With an aggressive driver.
He slammed on his brakes because I didn't move out of his way. And then all of a sudden, I heard a big pop. I was like, I think this guy shot at me. I need to get his license plate number.
He admits it wasn't smart to give chase while fumbling with his cell phone.
I'm trying to film like this, trying to zoom in, but we're going as fast as we can.
This is Dyer's last view before the suspect car veered from an off-ramp back onto the highway to make a getaway, but not before crashing through road signs. He wasn't laughing a bit later when he saw this in his car's rear panel.
I came out around the car and I saw the punctured hole right there, and I was like, oh crap.
The bullet's here. He might have been trying to shoot you.
100% he was. 100%.
And they just shot in my car, like 3 times.
I had a person in a Jeep point a gun at me.
Once I heard shots, I ducked my head, you know.
The King 5 investigators analyzed a year's worth of gun-related 911 calls to the State Patrol from King County interstates and highways.
We are overhead, have the vehicle in sight, and are recording.
An additional RP observed the driver of that vehicle throw a firearm out of the window.
Many are reports of someone flashing a gun.
And you said a handgun?
Yeah.
Others are the most serious calls of all.
Somebody shooting me! Somebody shooting me!
In the one-year period ending last February, we counted 577 gun calls on King County freeways. We reviewed more than 200 incident reports from those calls.
He took a shot and I heard the loud bang.
Including the heating and cooling worker fired on with an assault rifle.
They're just like thinking this is it, you know. I'm gonna get shot for no reason, you know.
It seems like it maybe came in this direction. There's the initial hit.
The military veteran who reported that a BB or bullet glanced off his windshield.
Because it didn't sound like just a rock hitting the cars.
So there's a shooting that occurred south on I-5 just north of 320th.
And the couple whose shopping trip ended in gunfire.
I was just driving normally and they shot him!
I was sobbing, crying. I couldn't breathe for how much I cried.
Isabella asked that we not use her real name. She was in the passenger seat of this Honda Civic on I-5 in December. A bullet, fired by another driver, shattered the window and hit her boyfriend in the neck.
And then I saw my boyfriend over. He was kind of saying bye to me because he didn't know he was going to make it. I mean, I was about to give birth in like a month and a half. I thought I was going to lose my baby.
You're worried about losing your boyfriend and the baby.
Yes.
That's terrible.
I didn't want, my baby to grow up without his dad. It was very hard.
Both baby and boyfriend survived. The State Patrol later arrested an Auburn man and charged him with drug-fueled shootings of up to a half-dozen random motorists.
The least place I expected was a freeway. I thought a car was a safe place.
But you are more unsafe on the interstate, according to State Patrol data reviewed by the King 5 investigators. We compared the 577 gun calls in the past year to the year before the COVID pandemic shutdowns in March of 2020. Since then, there's been a 70% increase in gun-related calls on King County freeways.
What is going on out there since COVID? There is no traffic. We get used to that. And once traffic starts coming back, your commute time rises and rises. Could that potentially be why there's more aggravation?
So there may be more people getting cut off, more people being bumper to bumper, more frustration.
It could be part of it.
Here's what you should know when you're behind the wheel, and this is important. In most cases, you can avoid a confrontation with an aggressive driver by taking that deep breath and showing some restraint.
Don't engage with them. Don't brake check them. If you can get out of their way.
Over and over, we saw reports of victims not allowing aggressive drivers to pass, motorists screaming at one another, and even two drivers pointing handguns at each other.
But don't engage. That is the number one thing. Don't engage.
I engage sometimes, flip them off.
An onboard camera captured this road rage 3 years ago when a driver used his fists as weapons against Evan Dyer. But after facing a gun on Interstate 5,
it makes me think when I drive down the road, I don't engage in people anymore.
Dyer's had enough of being a road warrior.
Sit back and just let people do what they want to do.
Wow. All right. That's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, even on the interstates, that never ends. The good stuff's coming your way next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.